Southgate has brought the age down. At the World Cup, it was around 26. Now, Stuart, it is just under 24. What does that tell you?
I think it tells you straight away they're planning for the future, and the future isn't the here and now. It's in, I think, beyond 2 years even, maybe 4 years, maybe 6, maybe 8. I think we should be optimistic, the average age being as it is. I think there's a few players outside the squad as well, in the younger squads, that can come and deliver performances, but I think we should be buoyed up by that.
I mean, when you said 2, maybe 4 years was good, when you said 6 and 8, I started to get concerned. How realistic is it to be able to look at a group of players and say, yes, that's when they're going to come right?
I would counter you and turn around and say, why would you be concerned with 4 and 6 years, but you're quite happy to have no trophies for the last 70? In the timescale of things, I think 4 and 6 years is nothing when you're building a squad as we are at the moment, you know.
And will he only make that decision based on what he sees, what he's got?
Of course. I mean, any coach or manager can only work with what you've got as a player. What he's got to do is create an international pathway for a lot of these players. If I pick one player out individually, someone like Rashford's not getting enough club football. So he's got to create an international pathway to hopefully somewhere down the line get a player that has got a great deal of talent. But we need him to flourish at international level. Gareth can't dictate what happens at club level to the likes of Rashford, but he can when he's got him in his own care these next 10 days or whatever, and he's got to give him as much minutes as he possibly can, with the hope that the end game being 2, 4, 6 years' time that we get a world-class striker out of him.
I mean, one player who has taken matters into his own hands is Jadon Sancho. He's moved himself abroad so that he can play. Paul, how excited are you by him? I know you've seen him up close.
I have. I was over in the summer watching him, and he played against Lazio in a friendly game, and then he played against Greater Firth, and he changed the game. He set up McIlroy's for the winner. The great thing for me is that when I was talking to Michael Zorc about him, they've got really high hopes for him. He's at a world-class club. He's playing in front of 83,000 every week. He's playing Champions League. He's playing Bayern Munich. He's got all the big clubs there. So I don't think England will faze him at all. I think he's
ready.
He'll be used to the atmospheres, because Dortmund have a massive following, so that won't be a problem to him. The only thing he'll need to adjust to is a little bit of different type of football on that side of it, but I know Borussia Dortmund are really happy with him.
I know you do, but do you think perhaps many people don't realise how much he's achieved to get into that team and to be playing at that level? Well,
first step, I think, going over there at such a young age where you're going into a dressing room where some of the lads have won the World Cup, which has been huge for him. He'll need to learn the language, first and foremost. He'll need to try and speak that, the German language. He'll need to adapt, different type of football. But one thing I've noticed, because his performance has been that high, the Dortmund crowd have took to him. And that once you get them on your side, there's no better support with the fanatical support they've got. What he's done has been absolutely brilliant, I think. And if he can see it through and keep progressing the way he'll be a top player.
Paul, you've been out in Germany. Is this experience going to help him rather than stay in this country and go out on loan?
The first thing I found, Stuart, was it changes your life. It changes you as a person. You grow up really quickly because you have to. Yeah. You have to learn another language. You have to adapt to the German culture of it. You're playing in, as I said before, you're playing in a big, big club with a big fan base that expect to be up there. They expect to be going against Bayern every single year. They expect to be Champions League football, and that's the beauty about the club. But he will grow up as a person really, really quickly. You might find, I mean, I don't know the lad, you might find he'll speak very mature.
Yeah, that might be
every
the key.
experience is a good experience, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, when you go on loan as a youngster, you want to go and do well first and foremost and play football. But sometimes the worst loans that you have are sometimes the best ones. You always learn from your mistakes, and it puts you in better stead for the next time that you go out on loan. I was fortunate enough that when I was at Arsenal, I went on loan to Brentford, had a fantastic loan spell there for a year, and I grew up tenfold, you know, on and off the pitch, how to conduct myself, being around old school professionals. So what these youngsters now are doing and going out on loan and sort of having the courage to say, right, well, if I'm not going to make it at this club, then I'm going to go out and try and make it another one. It's setting a precedent now for other youngsters watching to say, well, I'm going to follow the footsteps in that.
Well, Jack Wilshere said something today, again, talking about the type of midfield player that England have been crying out for. He said the academy system is not conducive to creating those sorts of players. Players have got to go out on loan and get themselves good enough to get into those teams. Otherwise, it just doesn't happen.
Well, if we're looking at the World Cup winners and European Championship winners of the last 20 years, let's say, most of the players, French players, Brazilian players, they all play abroad. Now, whether that's the key to the England squad, having more of our players playing abroad, if we get 50% of our players playing outside the Premier League, would that help us?
Well, just certainly for the youngsters, just playing for a start is going to help massively, isn't it? Because as you say, though, Stuart, you know, planning ahead, it shows also the FA's commitment to Gareth Southgate as well. But Steve, how excited are you by the squad?
This squad that's been announced now, yeah, it's like hugely. You know, you look at what you said there about obviously Gareth being signing a new contract now. The philosophy people say now about the philosophy of football clubs. Well, this is the philosophy of the nation. You know, they're going for youth. They're going for the future. You look at the trophies and the competitions that they've won with the World Cups and the Euros with the youngsters now. It's all looking good for, as Stuart says, 4-6 years down the line. But that's if these individuals are getting the correct pathway of playing football. There's no point these youngsters getting a chance now and then going back to their clubs and not playing or not getting enough game time to then not be able to showcase it on the international level.
It's quite interesting to hear once again from Ross Barkley, because he's also been talking today about the holy grail, if you like, or the curse of England's creative players and trying to replace, well, the one and only.
All of the midfielders are going to be thinking that way. You know, it's a challenge for us, you know, to go out there and produce the goods as Gaza did when he was a player. But you know, we've got a lot of talent in this squad that can produce magic at any moment in the game, and you know, we've got a confident bunch of lads as well, and there's good talent coming through.
Paul, Ross Barkley himself, because of the way he plays, early on in his career, he invited Gaza comparisons. He didn't. They were put to him. Is that totally unfair on anybody, really?
I played against Gaza. I know Stuart played with. That's unfair. In my opinion, it's unfair. I think Paul Gascoigne had done it over a number of years. Every game, played at the highest level. Went abroad, even done it in Lazio, in the national team semi-finals. That's a different animal altogether, in my opinion. I think Gaza was a unique footballer, and they had the privilege of playing against him. This is a young guy who's really just kind of starting his football for me at the minute. He's kind of started his career through injury or not getting in teams. I think to compare him with Paul Gascoigne, I think is a bit over the top.
I think also as well, is it right that we look for constantly as England fans for somebody to replace Paul Gascoigne? When how realistic is that, Stuart?
I think we've had probably Bobby Charlton when we won the World Cup, and then we've had Gascoigne. You know, people sort of in my generation and just after me, people talked about Steven Gerrard and Frank Lampard, but still, you're talking about comparing Ross Barkley to Gaza. I'm not sure you can even compare Gerrard or Lampard to Gaza, so it shows how good he was as such. But listen, we need to find some form of creativity in our midfield, I think, whether it comes from one individual like Gascoigne that come through the system and was, you know, world class, or we find it from 2 or 3 players within our midfield 3, if he's playing that way, or a 2, however we find it. But between the 5 players, if we're going to play 3 at the back with 2 wing backs, then I think a holding midfield player, fine, but the 4 in front of those, the 2 and 2, we're going to have to find some form of creativity and help Harry Kane out with the goals, and those 4 are absolutely vital, I think.
Well, let's take Paul Gascoigne right out of the equation, because in many ways it's completely non-realistic. But right now, have we not actually got, in this day and age, some very, very promising creative players in the shape of Winks, of Mason Mount, James Maddison? Are these not the sort of players who can bring real creativity?
So I think it's a case of when they go out and play, and that's what I like about the youth now, is that they go out and they sort of just release the shackles and they just go out and express themselves. But I mean, you read about and you hear the professionals that you just said there, about Steve Gerrard's, the Rios and John Terry's, Lampards. that they had a sense of pressure where they sort of maybe go for a safety option on the pitch rather than a real creative option where you want someone on that stage to just go out and just go on, just go and enjoy it, go and play. If you make a mistake, it doesn't matter. Whereas now with the press, the media, the whole scrutiny now that's on English football and Premier League football now, I think it's hard for them to go out and really express themselves.
Yeah. But it's funny, different eras give you different players, and I was in an era where I played against Georgie Hadji, Thomas Hassler, Mehmet Shaw, Zidane, number 10s, as I called them. And number 10s for me were guys that could play with their back to goal and find space and then hurt you with a pass or a goal. Played with one of the greatest players, Andres Mola. And Andy would pop into spaces where you think, how's he found that space? And then all of a sudden, it's a goal. They created things out of nothing. But Lionel Messi's, the number 10s, as I call them, I just think they're very unique to find in Britain. A midfield player in Britain, how good Stevie Gerrard was and people like that, they're different to the number 10s. Number 10s can really, really hurt you in a blink of an eye.
Jeff, let me throw this in the mix, right? If the England squad, as we've got it now, was a club side and you can go into the transfer market and buy anybody, and you had one pick to go and buy somebody, I think you'd put all your money into an Eriksen, a Modric, a Hazard or a Silva to make the rest of them tick. Yeah. To be that, you know, that crown jewel in the middle of the rest of it. Yeah. I really would.
So, given the names that we've been discussing there, who do you think, as we speak, is most likely or could potentially become that player for England?
I've seen, having worked inside the England setup as well, I've seen a lot of false dawns. You know, I've seen, you know, us turning around and saying we're going to build a team around Ross Barkley. That was 6 years ago. Jack Wilshere. We're going to build a team around Jack Wilshere because we were lauding him as you've almost got to wait for these youngsters. Don't put any pressure on them. Take all the pressure off them and let them develop and mature as they are, and they'll reach whatever heights they're going to reach. And sometimes, you know, City talked about players going out on loan. I went and watched Harry Kane when I was under-21 manager. He's a young player out on loan at Millwall, and I looked at him and thought, there's no way in a million years he's going to reach the heights as a footballer. And I think a lot of us said that about him. And you get surprised by somebody that just comes from nowhere and arrives. Harry Maguire, I worked with him. I thought, well, you know, he'll do well to get in the under-21s. You know, you pick him in the under-21s, done OK, nothing great, lack of pace might let him down. All of a sudden, he's got the maturity and the, I don't know, he's got that little bit about him that City touched on, you know, that little bit of mental strength, if you like, you know, that might take him further and further.
But perhaps one of the bonuses of Gareth Southgate's long-term contract, that he will allow these type of creative players, and we're focusing on them right now, he'll let them make mistakes. He will say, yeah, don't worry, you tried it, you know.
I think, Jeff, I think the big thing that England is, in the media have done and Gareth have done is they've told the fans, this is a young team, give them time. And I think the perception now of the crowd going to them is, OK, we've not got that golden generation, we're going to win it. I think they'll give the guys time to go, OK, let's see if you can build it. As Stuart said there, the 2, 4, 6 years, whatever it is going to be. But at least there's a plan in place to say, these guys are young, we won't win every game, but we'll progress and we will hopefully hit that height. OK, I want to put something to the three of you. Just had a good tweet come in. Can Harry Winks be that player in front of a back three for England? He's much more comfortable on the ball than Dyer or Henderson, has tenacity for a tackle and can find a pass and break lines. What type of player? A playmaker? Or?
Like a holding midfield player?
Yeah. It's totally different from a creativity player. A number 10 will hurt you where it is going to hurt you. Where like Messi or Gascoigne, they hurt you at that end of the pitch. If it's somebody sitting there, they can dictate the game with their passing and reading the game, smelling out the danger of it. That's a totally different, for me, it's a totally different opposite position. Have you got to be able to do both now?
Well, Henderson's playing as a holder. I think he's established himself. Before the World Cup, we were talking about Henderson or Dyer, which one, not sure. After the World Cup, everyone knows which one's by far the best one, in my opinion. I think Henderson offers leadership as well. As every game goes by, I see him. He's the captain of Liverpool Football Club. You can see in his body language, he's cajoling them and bullying people around him in a nice way, and he's got a bit of both. I think, he might not thread that little pass, but he'll get on the ball. I wouldn't say he's a total out-and-out holding midfield player, but he knows positionally where to be at the right times. For me, he's not the problem either. I think it's in front of him where we've got to get better and cuter.
Just stay on Harry Winks. The best thing that I'm seeing at the moment is that he's getting a chance to do it at Tottenham at the highest level as well. So he's obviously played against Barcelona. He got the run out, was it last season, against Real Madrid as well. So he's been given a platform to go out and play, and that's from a top manager at that football club that believes in him as well. So that's going to give him massive confidence. If he's getting that at club level, then he's going to get the call up from the international stage, that he can take that then on board to showcase it this week, hopefully.
I mean, the fact that we're talking about this creative element and trying, as you say, helping out with the goals, helping Harry Kane as well, was perhaps Will Hughes, after the terrific start he's had to the season, was he unlucky not to get a squeak?
Yeah, I think he's had a decent start to the season. He's a regular for Watford, and Watford have started the season well. And if you're playing the Premier League, you're very close to the England squad. If you're English, end of, that's how it is. I think there's a toss of a coin between him and one or two others.
Yeah, Lewis Cook, he's another one. Been really impressed with him. Seen a lot of his games this year. Fantastic player. I think he'll feel hard done by. Is it a case of, with him and Harry Winks, that the portfolio of the club, the profile of the club is better for one than the other? So there's always going to be that toss-up and arguments, but as long as these players are getting a chance, then that's all that matters. And the best thing about it is they've all got the capabilities to go and do it. They just need that pathway, that's it.
I mean, as a fan, I'm just encouraged that there are this number of options. There seem to be more options at the moment than we've had for some time.
I think there are options, but not nailed-on big hitters. I think if we compared our squad with maybe the Belgium squad, and bear in mind, Belgium haven't won anything either, by the way, and you've got De Bruyne in their midfield, and who'd walk into the England team, wouldn't he? And various other players would, and Modric and Eriksen. And what we want is to be sat there with a squad of the completed article right in I think 4 or 6 years' time, rather than saying we got quite a few names on a piece of paper and they're all have got potential. We need them to realise that potential and be in that squad. Bang, there they are, and might be of an age of 28, 29 when they're probably coming to their prime.
Steve, can't let the moment go without asking about your former teammate, Lewis Dunk at Brighton, called up today.
Yeah.
Deserve it?
Superb. Really, really pleased for him. And, I mean, I signed for the club 2.5 years ago, and from the day that I set foot in that football club, he was the most consistent player in that period, in training and on the pitch. He tries to mould his game on John Terry. I think he's one of his heroes, his idols, and he plays exactly like him. And his leadership qualities show that. I think last year he was probably playing his best football, if I'm honest. I think maybe with the World Cup in the summer may have hindered his chances of getting a call-up then, but he's got his foot in the door now, and hopefully this should be the first of many, because he could be one of the finest defenders behind John Terry.
High praise indeed. Now, Stuart, you offered to take up the battle on behalf of the three of you. You've picked your England team for this squad. Let's have a look at this 11.
Pickford in goal. I think when he's been given the opportunity of playing another goalkeeper, he hasn't done. So I think Jordan's the one who needs the experience. I've seen a fair bit of Joe Gomez, and I've been really impressed with him. He can only get better and better, this kid. He would have been not only in the squad in the summer, I think he'd have started in all the games, personally, if he'd have been fit in the summer. Stones and Maguire being the other two, obviously they're part of the two-man partnership. I'd probably advance Walker back to his normal position.
As opposed to centre-half?
Yeah, for this one, because Gomez is back in the fold now, and I've been very impressed with him. Whether it be Walker or Trippier, I think they're both doing particularly well at the moment, and we're blessed in that position. I think Chilwell's done very well when I've seen him this year.
Called in?
Yeah, I watched him play for the 21s this year, and he was the best player on the pitch. Whether he goes down the line of Rosie, he might do, but for me, I'd have a little look at Chilwell personally. Henderson, I think, helps make us tick, his energy, his leadership. I'd probably, in front of him, if you're going to put Barkley in the squad and we're thinking that this kid might be able to find us a pass, and give him a game. You know, same with Maddison as well. We need to find someone in the engine room there to probably create and potentially score as well. And up front, Harry Kane picks himself, and you've got to keep paying Rashford, because at the moment I watched United on Saturday and he didn't have a very good game, I've got to say, Marcus. And if anything, for the sake of English football, we've got to keep progressing his career, I think. You know, I think it will be a salvation for him to meet up with England and get away from Manchester United, because the cloud that's on the club at the moment...
Around it at the moment.
He's playing some games, he's in and out the team a little bit. I think this could be a salvation and get him back on a pitch. And he's scored 2 goals in the last 2 games, so...
Paul, you're an experienced manager. What did you make of Stuart's team? Like, look at that.
I think it's really strong. I like Stones. I think he's a typical European-type footballer at the back. I think he's fantastic on the ball at the back. I've always liked Kyle Walker. I think he gives you great energy up and down the side. Chilwell will do the exact same. The only thing I'd maybe flip and make it a midfield 2 and put one of the creative ones in behind the front 2. Yeah. That's that slide rule pass or somebody to make something happen.
Same players though, just slight alteration in.
That's the only thing I would really do. But the personnel, you think, it's very, very strong. Okay, there's 1 or 2 untried ones, but you won't know until you actually give them a game.
Yeah,
give them a go.
Give them their head.
Yeah, I've been really impressed with Maddison so far this year. Played against him last year in a friendly when he was at Norwich, and he stood out head and shoulders on the day. I've watched him with his link-up play with Vardy. He's really mature in the areas that he picks up. He's not frightened to be on the half-turn, play a through ball. He's got an eye for a pass and can score a great goal. So hopefully he'll get a chance and a chance to shine.
He seems completely unfazed by the move up he's made, doesn't he?
And this is all in his debut season. I mean, his first game against Man United at Old Trafford, he was outstanding. He was one of the best players on the pitch for his first game at Old Trafford in the Premier League, you know, as a youngster. And he's just gone on strength to strength to strength. And I think he's at the perfect club as well with Leicester to progress that as well.